Hello again and welcome to another episode of the SPI Vidcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about numerology, or how mathematics can influence a person's behavior, a person's outlook in life, and a person's, general spiritual holism. According to Wikipedia, numerology is any belief in the divine, mystical relationship between a number and one or more coinciding events. Now, mathematics is something that we all have learned in school. We accept the idea that mathematics governs the natural world. However, in numerology, mathematics is seen as also something that governs the spiritual world, and this exists in the realm of fringe science. Why? Because the effects of mathematics, when seen in this way, is not always clearly discernible, not always reliable, or not always valid, to use scientific methodological terms. Let's take a look first at how mathematics influences the natural world. Aside from its applications in engineering, physics, and chemistry, one of the most stark ways, if you will, in which mathematics influences the natural world is in the golden ratio, which can be explained as A plus B over A equals to A over B. This essentially is looking at the dimensions of any number or any physical properties of any physical object. And if its physical properties fit this particular formula, then it is said to fit into the golden ratio. Leonardo Fibonacci, who lived around 1170 to 1250 in Italy, he was an Italian mathematician. He put this golden ratio into a spiral, as you can see here. The numbers within are the dimensions that fit into the golden ratio. And this Fibonacci spiral has been found to occur throughout nature. For example, in the Nautilus shell, the Messier 74 galaxy also fits into that spiral. Now, this Messier 74 galaxy is actually 32 million light years away from Earth in the constellation of Pisces, I believe. Another example is, of course, Hurricane Irene, which was a very large and destructive tropical cyclone. This affected a lot of the Caribbean and the east coast of the United States in late August 2011. And finally, we can take a look at sunflower seeds. This is how sunflower seeds look like when they're still in the flower. They fit into that Fibonacci spiral again. Now, it might be shocking to some to see that the Fibonacci spiral is not just a theory and not even man-made into a design. It occurs in nature. So people might be questioning who put it there. According to some cultures and beliefs, it was God who put it there. Now, if you take a look at the Freemason emblem, which you can see here, there is a compass and a square ruler. Now, this Freemason emblem is officially called as the square and compasses. In the middle, there is either a G or an I, the eye of God. G can represent God or the grand architect of the universe, or it could also refer to the geometry, G as in geometry, the grand architect of the geometry, suggesting that God himself was a mathematician and he plotted the earth according to mathematical principles. This makes mathematics to be a holy science that goes beyond what we see in front of us. It goes into the realm of spirituality as well. If you take a look at the Taoist Bagua, there is an instance of sacred geometry within it. The octagon represents what the Taoists believe to be a geometrical shape that fits into the positives, negatives, the yin and yang of the universe. The Buddhists and Hindus also have mandalas, which express their worldview of sacred geometry. Sakyant tattoos also, which is done in Thailand, in Cambodia as well, has a very long history back into the old Khmer times, which was of course influenced by Vedic literature brought by the Brahmins and the Indians to that part of Southeast Asia. As you can see in Sakyant tattoos are laid out as well in geometric shapes. Now I want to take a look at how one can calculate one's characteristics and sometimes one's luck and one's future based on one's name. There are many ways of doing this, but essentially it assigns one letter of your name to a number, and then these numbers are counted together and characteristics are generated based on that calculation. There are many ways to do it. The Chinese have a way of doing it. The Hindus have a way of doing it. The Greeks have a way of doing it. And the Jews have a way of doing it as well. And here we take a look at the Chaldean way of doing it. Now, the Chaldean way of doing it harks back to Jewish times. Chaldea was an old country in the Middle East. It is no longer there. The Middle East has gone through quite a bit of reshuffling and renaming over the years. Just in case you didn't know, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries have changed their names. What is now Iran used to be known as Persia. What is now known as Syria used to be known as Assyria. What is now Lebanon used to be known as Phoenicia. Okay, so same thing with Chaldea, which has a very strong Jewish culture in it. So the Chaldean way of counting the numbers associated with one's name looks like this. The letters in one's name are associated with a number each. Based on the letters in your name, you assign each letter to a number, and you count it all and you calculate it down to a single digit. Many people believe that the names of places, the names of people, when calculated according to these Pythagorean, Chinese, Hindu, or Chaldean rules, does bring about characteristics associated with that calculation. So for example, if you calculate just the word yes, it comes to the number 9, which sounds like success, which is attributed rather to success. It has a very positive vibe about it. If you calculate the word no, it comes to number 3, which is agitation. It is very negative. Yes and no, these are the two very basic negative words in the English language. Now let's calculate the name of a country like USA, for example. It comes to 1, which is attributed with leadership. The US has been the world leader since the end of Pax Britannica. It's been quite a long time. So calculating one's characteristics based on one's name has been used quite to a large extent by many Chinese Singaporeans. If you notice that many Chinese Singaporeans have names which are not quite orthodox. I mean, they were derived from names which you often hear of, but the way they spell it and the way they pronounce it is not quite that. Say, for example, a name like Vincent. There might be a guy who calls himself Wincent instead of Vincent. For example, the name Edwin. There might be a guy who calls himself Edwin instead of Edwin. Now, you might wonder why. Is it just stylistics, aesthetics and stuff? Well, not quite. For many of these people, they changed their names because their original name had characteristics which they didn't quite like. So it put them in a kind of a life situation which they didn't truly appreciate. So by changing one or more letters in their name, they are hoping to get better characteristics out of it. Let's take a look at an example, okay? I'm going to calculate the numbers for the name Joyce. Joyce. This comes to the number 8, which is associated with responsibility and stress. Now, this might suit some people. Some people work really well under stress, especially those who are like very the chiong type, right? But if this particular Joyce doesn't like stress so much, she doesn't want so much responsibility, but she knows she has a lot of it in her life. So what does she do? She tries to change one of the letters in her name into something like voice. Just change the J to an F. That will come to number 6, which looks like, as we mentioned earlier, good financial health and a good family life. Okay, by changing one letter, it still sounds like her old name, but it would give her a different set of characteristics which she prefers to the one before that. Okay, so now let's take a look at this from a scientific methodology point of view and try to see if any of this holds water at all, okay? Alright, so now when you read your name constantly, when you hear someone calling you constantly, hey Joyce, right? People call your name constantly. You read your name on application forms, you read your name on your name placard at work, on your name cards at work, whatever. You see your name all the time, you hear your name all the time. What that gives you is a certain vibration. When you say your name, there is vibration in your throat. When you hear your name, there's vibration in your ear. When you read your name, there are signals sent from your eye to your brain. Now, vibrations can affect quite a bit of things, okay? Vibrations can affect your mental state, which in turn affects your relationship with others. If your mental state is good, you will have a good relationship with others. Vice versa, if it is bad, you will have kind of a bit of a bad relationship with others. It will then also affect your outlook on life. And all this can actually affect your physical well-being. Your mental state, the vibrations, the emotions can very much affect your physical well-being. One very good example about this is what we call as psychosomatic disorders. Psychosomatic disorders essentially are things you feel physically on your body. You feel that you're sick, some part of your body is sick, or you have some general malaise in your body, in your physical system, which cannot be attributed to anything that you ate, to any exercise that you did, to any injury that you had. It just happened. You know, some people have stomach ulcers, some people have acid reflux, and they don't know where it came from. If you guys know the channel Tech Quickie, it is a channel all about technology. It is very, very mainstream science. But in one of the episodes called Repetitive Strain Injury Explained, the host actually mentions that he had this searing pain in his hand that he could not figure out why it was there. I mean, he changed his sitting position, he bought ergonomic stuff for himself, you know, he used an ergonomic mouse, yet the pain was still there. That is, until he quit his job and the strain disappeared. What can we attribute this to? He was in a bad working environment. It wasn't the physical environment at all. It was the bad working environment that caused him to have this psychosomatic disorder. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the SPI Vidcast. I'll see you again in the next episode. Goodbye.